What's up, brothers and sisters? Brother G World 7_D. I'm going back to this book here that I presented before. It's called The Culture and Technology of African Iron Production. The Culture and Technology of African Iron Production. Alright? By Peter R. Smith. I'm going to go to page 151. I'm going to read a little bit or something, but then I'm going to go tie it into something. Right here. If I can get the light to focus on it. Okay, see if I can get right here. Okay, I got it on the phone, and I'm going to read it straight up. Techniques of iron production. Very little is known about the ancient smelting techniques in either area through either excavations or metallographic analysis. Yet iron is found in many of the Upemben graves in Zaire and at many of the early occupation sites in Zimbabwe. Some aspects of ancient smelting practices have, therefore, been reconstructed. Our recent laboratory analysis revealed that metal produced from the 8th century onward in Zaire and between the 13th and 16th centuries in Zimbabwe ranged from malleable wrought iron to high-grade steel. Okay, I'm going to repeat that again. Our recent laboratory analysis revealed that the metal produced from the 8th century onward in Zaire and between the 13th and 17th centuries in Zimbabwe ranged from malleable wrought iron to high-grade steel. The analysis also showed that many ancient smiths were highly skilled. They understood the properties of various metals produced and knew how to adapt them for particular functions. Alright, I'm going to stop right there. Now, you see all those rock structures that you see in America, which you oversee like near the Grand Canyon and what I showed you with the Anasazi. And I mentioned before how the ancients smelted iron, and it was basically iron that was found in some of these mounds. Our ancient ancestors here in America, and then black folks globally, knew how to smelt iron. They knew the properties to create iron and steel. They knew how to basically cut and cast and to make iron. And I believe that's what they used to cut and carve into the damn rocks. They didn't use no damn copper tools. They used iron to cut into them damn rocks, to penetrate those damn rocks. It'll be much easier, more efficient, and faster. So iron production, this book was Africa. There's also one in America, but iron production and smelting of iron, that technology has been known for thousands of years. But see, when you listen to these goofy ass white historians and some of these goofy Negro historians, they'll just tell you there are people backwards, they were slaves, they did not smelt iron, which they did. Repeat this again, they used that iron, that steel, to cut and carve into that goddamn rock. That's what they did. And I figured this out a long time ago, man. Because I don't buy into that bronze tool stuff, cut into rock like that. I ain't buying into that nonsense. I knew that they had a high form of technology, of mathematics, and they knew they were really deep into chemical mixing and creating a substance that could penetrate strong and heavy stone or bricks. And that's what they were great. You had great smelters who were casting iron or steel to cut into harder and more stern objects. And that's what our ancestors did do. This is why I mention stuff from a multidisciplinary aspect of studying different things and then compile that information and then formulate it as one. These people have been lying. They've not only been lying about the race of the people, but they've been lying about their intellectual, their intellectual fortitude and their push for building great architectural structures and ingenuity. These bastards will downplay to say our people were basically primitive, which they were not. These were highly advanced Negroes. And it's something that really needs to be emphasized. So we got to start really studying our history and stop listening to white folks and stop listening to goofy Pan-Africans said you just came over in a slave ship. You came over in slave ships and you knew about cotton more than the Aboriginal people that were already here. That stuff don't make any sense, man. So when you listen to these damn Negroes, man, run their mouth, man. And you just laugh at their ass because they're just talking nonsense and stupidity. So this is stuff that is really important about the iron smelting, and I just read that small piece, but that's something that is really need to be known. I'm going to read this little quick piece right here. The mechanism of iron smelting in Kagera region, if I pronounced it correctly. The basic components of iron smelting operation in the Kagera region include a furnace structure, clay tuyers, bellows, iron ore, and fuel. Options existed in the manufacture or selection of these components that could vary according to their physical attributes, location in and around the furnace, and chemical compositions. The choices affected the type and quality of the iron and slag production and could change over time. The particular combination of materials and procedures selected by the ancient and the higher iron smelters resulted in an operation that could be best characterized as somewhere between those found in a bloomery and a blast furnace. The metal products were dense masses of predominantly carbon steel, along with some cast iron and wrought iron. All of these types of iron and iron alloy contain significant amounts of phosphorus, and an element that affected the entire iron production process from smelting to forging. The following evidence suggests that many of the same procedural decisions were made over time. First, the furnaces were built so that the combination of the stack and pit created a fairly long reaction zone. Second, the furnace pit was filled with a bed of charcoal logs and cubes by the early Iron Age workers and a bed of charred grass by the Haya. This bed initially helped to keep the ore and the charcoal charge situated high in the stack, where early reduction occurred. It later provided a medium in which the forming metal underwent critical chemical reaction. Third, both the ancient Haya ironworkers used ore that was approximately 2 centimeters in size. Fourth, they used refractory, heat-resistant clays to make their tuyers, and which they then positioned radically around the furnace. The majority of each pipe length was situated well inside the furnace. Fifth, the ore was roasted prior to smelting. The significance of these decisions and evidence of their long-term use will be developed. Other procedural decisions, however, changed in fundamental ways between the early Iron Age and the recent past, particularly the materials used to build the furnace structures. Clay bricks to slabs of slag and termite earth dab, and fuel sources, charcoal lumps and logs to swamp grass and charcoal pieces. Now I'm going to stop right there and I'm talking about the different types of technique that they use to smelt iron. Like I said before, they were smelting iron over in Africa. This is a book called The Culture and Technology of African Iron Production. They were smelting iron over here. They found iron in many of these mounds, like I just said earlier in this video. So they were smelting iron in many of those mounds or around those mounds area, and then smelting them and carving, creating iron or steel, hard substance to cut into harder substance. So they had the technology to cut and to carve, to measure, to cut and carve into rock, and then place it at which they already been sized and measured to place appropriately, and where they're placed in, and they measure, they cut and they measure when they place in these structures, and they place in there when they're perfectly fitted on those blocks, which many of that stuff is still standing today with our ancestors built, because they use great mathematics, they use great science and chemistry to cut and to carve into harder substance, and to basically place certain things, and they had the exact measurements correct to place these things on top of each other. This was brilliant. But see, when you listen to white scholars belittle us, or Negroes who just want to make us slaves from Africa, that tells you something, man. There's a lot of hiding going on along our true history. So when you look at those rock structures, because our ancestors carved into rock globally. I told you in Angkor Wat, them faces carved into rock. Over in Arabia, you see faces carved into rock. A face carved into rock that looked like an Olmec head, man. Globally, this was done. They used a smelted iron. This technology has been known for the longest. But these bastards are not going to teach you this. But I'm going to teach you this. And this is why it's so important for us to really critically study our true history and stop listening to this back to Africa nonsense. We're just African nonsense. We just came over as slaves and chains. We couldn't read. That's nonsense. That's nonsense. Your information is there, but you're going to have to want to study it and seek it. You're going to have to want to study and seek this information. I said before, our ancestors created boats. All right, they created boats in various different structures, and they was able to assemble and deassemble the boat, and then reassemble it again. They was able to use the boat to sail around the world, which they did do that. And they traded with one another. That's why you find certain things in one location that is not natural, but it was natural somewhere else, because it was always constant trade. And trading of ideas, information on building different structures. That was done globally. So our ancestors had the technology to carve into rock, and they built mounds globally. Pyramids globally. So this shows you an ancient global connection, not only what's on Earth, but they were in tune with the stars, the celestial. It was in tune with it. So do not belittle your ancestors. Continue to study and continue to do your research on your true history, because the information is there. You have to connect the points, connect the dots. Like I told you about the braids. I think the braids has a lot to do, or the locks has a lot to do with the serpent culture and the serpent deities. You see those locks, and it's coiled up, and it's coiled up like a little, I guess you could use the term a hot dog or something, or like how the snake is coiled up, and like that's how those locks look. And I believe, like I said, it has a lot to do with the ancient serpent belief. So our ancestors are always in tune with nature, the various different animals, and the various different aspects of the celestial heavens. Peace and love, brothers and sisters.